Welcome to the Improve81 podcast, a discussion of how the Virginia Department of Transportation is working to enhance safety and traffic flow along its portion of Interstate 81. This is a 325-mile corridor along the Appalachian Mountains in western Virginia. The I-81 Corridor Improvement Program, also called the CIP or Improve81, provides funding and guidance for roughly $3 billion worth of construction projects and operational enhancements. 3 of the construction projects are clustered around a pair of interstate rest areas in Augusta County, and that's the focus of our podcast here today as we record here in mid-2024. I'm Ken Slack, Communications Coordinator for Improve81, and joining me today are Dave Covington, I-81 Program Delivery Director, and David Robinson, Project Manager for the Mount Sidney Safety Rest Area Improvements. Now, David, let's start with you. Explain a little bit about what these projects are and what the plans call for.
Yeah, these 3 projects all address the acceleration and deceleration lanes around the Mount Sidney rest area. The rest area is along I-81 between mile markers 232 and 233. Individually, the scope of these 3 projects works to extend the entrance and exit lanes along the southbound side rest area and the on-ramp, or I guess acceleration lane, for the northbound side of I-81. We've actually consolidated the 3 into one project in hopes to plan and build these projects more effectively. The main purpose of them is to really extend those merging lanes to give them enough trucks and other vehicles enough time to speed up and slow down as necessary to merge with the 81 traffic.
And just to help folks get oriented and visualize what we're talking about, these 2 Mount Sidney safety rest areas are directly across the median from each other along 81 northbound and southbound. And just to the north of these rest areas is an extra challenge for these projects.
Yeah, that's right, Ken. Just about 800 feet north of the rest areas is the Buttermilk Road Bridge, and it currently is really limiting the length of those merge lanes. It's been there since 81 was constructed in 1966, making it 58 years old. And we've started to see a few bridges in this area of the state show their age. And while this one's still in a fair condition, some of these bridges are starting to reach their design lifespan and are requiring maintenance and some even replacement. That's why we're proposing to address the bridge as part of this combined project. It's really to allow us to extend the acceleration lanes north and the one south of the rest area, but this will also save the cost of potential future maintenance along the bridge. And coordinating with Dave, we can really prepare a potential future 81 widening in this area if that ever comes around.
So we have some dual benefits here. This is a bridge that will need to be replaced sometime in the near future anyway, but by doing it now, we get the benefit of putting in a new bridge whose design will allow the extension of these acceleration and deceleration lanes. So Dave, these projects tend to have a relatively small footprint, but they can have a big impact, right?
Yeah, they absolutely can. I mean, from a safety perspective and congestion perspective, which is, what this program is really designed to address. Over the years, the traffic on Interstate 81 has steadily increased, which makes it more challenging for drivers to merge onto the interstate. Also, the actual speeds that people travel have increased, which makes it more challenging to exit the interstate. One of the unique features here, especially in the northbound direction, exiting the Mount Sidney rest area, is that you're climbing a grade. So that is definitely a challenge for a truck driver that is, hauling a heavy load, trying to climb that grade, and also looking for a gap to merge into the interstate while the drivers on the interstate, say if you're in the right lane and, you would like to move over to let that truck enter the interstate, but there's traffic to your left. Every year that goes by, it is getting more challenging to navigate interchanges, navigate safety rest areas, and that's why we're extending the acceleration and deceleration lanes.
As you were describing all that, I felt myself tensing up because it's hard not to picture that. As you're driving down the interstate and you see the truck coming in, you don't have room to move for him, but do I speed up? Do I slow down? And it's sometimes uncomfortable out there.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly how every driver out there feels. I feel the same way, that anytime that there's vehicles coming in and out of the interstate, it's a tension point that we want to try to resolve. The intent of this is to try to lengthen the deceleration lanes, lengthen the acceleration lanes to reduce crashes, and keep Virginia moving.
Keeping Virginia moving over the past several years of the Improve 81, the I-81 CIP. That's what we're talking about today with the acceleration lane and deceleration lane extensions, and specifically the ones that are coming up in the Mount Sidney area of Augusta County. Joining me today are Dave Covington, I-81 Program Delivery Director, and David Robinson, the Project Manager for the Mount Sidney rest areas. We're talking about the lanes that are going in and out of those two rest areas in northern Augusta County. So, we've seen quite a few of these. You talked about the number of these projects that we've done. There's been about 24 so far that we have finished as part of the CIP. We still have some more to come, right?
We've completed the vast majority of the ramp projects. I mean, we've got one we're working on now, and at exit 188, kind of in the Lexington, Rockbridge County area. But most of them are complete. And quite honestly, the construction of these is rather simple. Most of the time when you're driving through one of these projects, you don't even realize you drove through a work zone. They're really quick, little work zones. But the vast majority of the capital improvement projects in the I-81 program deal with these interchanges, deal with extending acceleration and deceleration ramps. And that gives you an indication that this is not just a one-off problem. This is consistent along the corridor. So when we developed the I-81 corridor improvement plan, we were looking at crash data, and you see these clusters around these ramps, and it deals with people merging into or exiting the interstate. This Mount Sidney project being 3 separate projects, I mean, that's a big swath of projects. I also think, the fact that we're bundling these projects is really important. It's going to create a more efficient delivery for less money for the taxpayers. As an example, in the Stanton district, one of the first contracts we put out for construction was a bundle of 5 ramp extension projects, and it went really well. So we've seen that efficiency. That's been a common theme throughout the I-81 corridor improvement program, is looking for opportunities to bundle projects.
And we've seen there's another benefit to that too. We've done it there, as you mentioned, the 5 ramp extensions. Also in the Rafine area at exit 205 with some several different improvements there. In the Withful area that's currently under construction, truck climbing lanes in Southwest Virginia. You also, when you bundle 2 or more projects, you're also talking about one contractor and not several different firms that are potentially creating conflicts among each other.
Yeah, that's a very important point. What we really want to do is we want to ensure that all the contractors are successful in delivering the project safely and efficiently and on time and on budget. And to do that, bundling these projects together here and in other places has been the right thing to do. At the end of the day, it saves the taxpayer money.
So we're going to talk about bundling with the Mount Sidney projects. We have 3 different ramp extensions, and they are coming soon, so to speak. But give us a little bit of an idea, David, of what our schedule looks like for what's going to be happening around these rest areas.
The preliminary engineering phase has just started, and we're developing plans, obviously coordinating, getting the separate work areas kind of coordinated. We'll be developing bridge plans, obviously, and that'll take, over the next 2 years to get those plans ready. Then begins the right-of-way acquisition, along with utility relocation, kind of takes place at the same time. That'll start in 2026 and can take up to a year. And then once that's done, we'll advertise for construction, have plans finalized by the end of 2027, and construction should kick off in the middle of 2028. I expect that to last about 2 years, and hopefully have this brand new bridge and everything up and running by the end of 2030.
So as part of these bridge replacement projects, one of the decisions that VDOT always has to make is whether to close a road, build the new bridge in exactly the same place, essentially, or whether to do what we call a stage construction, which allows us to keep that roadway open. So what are we doing in this case, and tell us about why we made the decision to do what we're doing.
Yeah, excellent question. This is something we definitely consider right at the beginning of design, and is something we take a pretty good look at. The stage construction certainly allows us to keep the bridge open, but it creates other complications with maintenance of traffic during construction, and has some other downsides. By closing the bridge, we can really ensure a safer construction area, and it typically allows us to replace it quicker and also do the other construction along the lanes a little quicker. And by combining it all and being able to do it, kind of have full control of our construction area, it allows us to be a little bit more effective and can save us some money.
And that points to some precedent we've had on some existing projects. We've had a somewhat similar project, an auxiliary lane just south of Stanton, where we have an auxiliary lane on the interstate, but that requires us to replace a bridge over top of the roadway at Barterbrook Road. And so what seems like a very small extra lane for a quarter of a mile or whatever it is does get a little more pricey when you have to replace a bridge. So what are we talking about for this particular project?
Yeah, sure. And actually, we used the Barterbrook Road to kind of help define our scope and really nail it down. Currently, after combining the three projects into one, this should be around $15 to $16 million. And we're hoping that once we have the unit prices updated and a better bridge design, we'll be able to really nail that down.
Unit prices, meaning like for the concrete and steel and things like that?
Yeah, exactly.
I assume change all the time.
Sure.
Okay. Dave, I mentioned the Barterbrook Road Bridge. What did we see with that project that it might help guide how we proceed with Mount Sidney?
I think from a cost estimating perspective, it really helps us because, we have bid data for a very similar project. And I think that that's the planning that we should be doing, looking at the future evolution of Interstate 81 and what could happen and what the demands are, that, setting some of these smaller projects up for future larger projects is a wise investment.
Now, one more project that I think we can draw some comparison with is in Botetourt County. The southbound rest area had extensions of both of the ramps, the one going into and back out of the rest area near Troutville. Now, we're doing something similar here, especially on the southbound side, but there's one big difference here. Unlike Troutville, where we were reconfiguring parking and adding spaces for trucks, that required a closure of that rest area. We're not doing this here, right, in Mount Sidney?
No, yeah, absolutely not. What we hope to do is just work on the shoulder of 81 and extend those acceleration and deceleration lanes. It shouldn't require any closure of the rest area at all. In fact, as Dave's mentioned, it will hardly feel like it's a construction zone because that work area will mostly be off the roadway. So the vehicles can continue going up and down the road as they normally would.
So the main traffic impact of this project is going to be for the folks that use Buttermilk Road. I mean, there will be, the plans call for right now, a closure of that roadway because of the bridge replacement. We'll have a detour. Folks will go a little bit further north to Kieseltown Road. But we try to do this as quickly as possible. I mean, it's sort of that balance between getting it done fast and minimizing traffic impacts.
Yeah, absolutely, Ken. It is, a little bit of give and take, but by closing it, we can get this done quicker. We can replace the bridge and get the lanes built in a reasonable amount of time. And using Barterbrook as an example, this bridge closure shouldn't be more than about 18 months. And the result will be a safer travel way, both for Route 775 and I-81.
David Robinson and Dave Covington, I thank you both for joining me today to talk about the Mount Sidney projects and the other ramp extensions that we have completed and still have planned as part of the Improve81 program, the I-81 CIP. And I also want to thank you, the listeners of this Improve81 podcast. VDOT now has dozens of these podcasts as well as videos that really help show and tell what is happening on the I-81 corridor. Be sure to check out our videos, podcasts, as well as quarterly newsletters, an interactive map, and a whole bunch of other features and resources at improve81.org. And as always, we wish you safe travels.